If you're not learning and adapting, you're not growing, you're not going to do well as an investor. Hi, I'm Louis Llanes with WealthNet Investments. Wanted to just talk a little bit about my thinking this week about trading and investing for clients and various things in our business. And it's, today I was just thinking about how much I've been thinking about psychology in the last week because, you can have all these systems and we do a lot of, quantitative analysis where we're looking at what do the numbers say? If we go back in time and we test a strategy or a concept, what do the numbers say? And a lot of that information we use as guidelines to help make decisions. In order to stay disciplined, you have to actually execute day in and day out. And that requires having a really good mental outlook and being congruent. I was just kind of going through my notes, and one of the things I like to do is I do a journal. I have this journal and I write in it mostly every day, not always every day, but I try to. And sometimes I'll put notes on a whiteboard or other things. Well, I was just looking at one of my passages that I was writing about, and it says, I feel like I need to fully execute our investment strategy without conflict, but with ease, eat our own cooking, and to communicate it, relax and live it day by day, constantly improving without stress. I feel like habits about blah, blah, blah. And I just talk about habits and beliefs. And the habit of actually executing every day, it's just like anything else, just having a good daily routine is for us, it just makes a whole lot of sense. And I think for anybody, it really makes a lot of sense. As it relates to the environment that we're in right now, I think you have to look at the data and understand that, there's times when you have out of sample stuff that there is no history for us to look back on. We can see history that rhymes with the current environment, kind of sort of like it, but in a lot of ways it's not exactly like it. So you have to use your own judgment too. There's this concept of always follow your model, always follow your process. And I believe that it makes sense to always follow your process. And in the process, you have to have an element that says, when do you not follow the traditional ways of doing things and the way you normally do things? And I think the only time you really don't follow the way you normally do things is when things aren't normal. And so if you're a client of ours, you know that we made some dramatic changes very quickly, and that really helped us a lot in our investment performance this year. It's not my first rodeo. I was talking to a client of mine, and she says, I'm really grateful for working with you, and it really made me feel good. And she said, we've been with you for over 20 years, and we've been through a bunch of up and downs, and you've really learned a lot. And I thought, wow, that was a great thing for her to say. You've learned a lot in your profession. God, I hope I continue to learn a lot in the profession. So it was a nice thing to hear from her, but it made me realize that if you're not learning and adapting, you're not growing, you're not going to do well as an investor. And you have to be able to adapt to whatever is changing. There's so many different things that have changed in the market since when I first got started in it. It got me thinking about, well, what is adapting, and when do you adapt? Well, you adapt to when you have new information that makes you realize that you need to change something that you normally do. And what's important is that you are able to identify those things that are normal versus non-normal. So signal versus noise. There's a concept of the signal to noise ratio, noise being just kind of fuzziness that doesn't really matter, but really trying to identify what is that signal that is changing and why is it changing. So it requires you to do more than just look at the numbers. There is a narrative sometimes that makes sense to follow. Now, in the past, I've always said, ignore the narrative. I trust numbers more than the narrative. And that is true. I do trust numbers more than I trust the narrative 90% of the time. And there are times, though, when you just must get out of the market, period. I look at the private equity market right now and go, I think a lot of people are being wooed into the private equity market, being sucked in by numbers that are not real because there's no mark to market in private equity. And this is kind of off topic, but it's just kind of a concept that I want to bring in. You have numbers that are really not real. There's no mark to market. And when it does get marked is after the fact. I can think of a story with one investor who was with Goldman Sachs, who had a ton of money with Goldman Sachs. And Goldman was recommending that they put all this money in, that he put all this money in private equity. And of course, he lost his shirt in private equity. And that was the catalyst for this particular investor to actually no longer trust the big brokers. So I'm not here to bash big brokers. I just think that there's times when you have to adapt and go out of sample and say, what does this mean and how do I need to change right now? I've been thinking a lot about how we communicate. How do you communicate with people in a way that it makes sense? And one of the things I've come to the realization, I was talking to a gentleman out of the UK who has been in the advertising world for a long time, and he's done video. He works for a financial news video firm that's global. It got founded by hedge fund managers, and I've done some contributions to them. And one of the things I've learned is that you really, people want to hear what a genuine conversation. So one of the things I'm planning on doing is cutting all the presentation stuff out as much and just have bullet points and have conversations with smart people, our internal smart people, and then external smart people, so that people can hear our current thinking, because I think that's what people want to hear. I think that's what you want to hear. You want to hear, what are we thinking? Why do we think it? And what are we doing about it? And that's what the direction I think we want to communicate, or we are going to communicate in the future. So anyhow, so here we are. It's on a Sunday. Everybody's out running around right now, except my son, who's upstairs banging around, and I'm working out of our home studio. I have a video studio and a recording studio in my house. I'm a big audio fan, and maybe one day I'll bring out my guitar. For those of you who don't know, I'm a guitar player, and maybe show you how, maybe play a few things. I want to hear your feedback. If you have any suggestions on what you want to hear, let me know. Comment. Go to our website, wealthnetinvest.com. You can always ping us at info@wealthnetinvest.com. And just, give us some feedback on what you want to hear, whether you're an individual investor, whether you're an investment professional, and you're curious as to how we're doing things, trying to generate ideas, give me a ping. And that's really all for now. Hope you're having a great day, and we'll talk to you later.